So it's amazing to have Emma along. Now, Emma came on our training a long time ago. She can tell us all about that in a moment. But it's been ages, and we have sort of times when we speak quite a bit, and then times when I don't hear from each other for quite a bit. So do you want to, anybody who's watching, let them know who you are, what is it you do, and can you remember the year you did your Biomechanics Coach diploma?
I think I did my diploma in 2011.
Was it?
Or not 11 or 12.
Right.
And I did the course because I had various injuries myself. I'm a personal trainer, and I wanted to try to draw the body together. I was having injuries. I would go to a physio or a chiropractor. They would deal with the issue, and then I would have aches and pains somewhere else. And a lot of my clients were experiencing this as well. So I actually met a guy who'd done the biomechanics education courses, and I also was looking at some other courses, and I went along to this chap, and he was very it wasn't a white coat situation, which was what I was kind of expecting. White coat, cameras, diplomas, loads of numbers, letters after his name. It was in his house. There was Swiss ball, there were cats everywhere. And I kind of was like, oh my God. And he was actually in his slippers. And I thought, crikey, what is this? And I went through the assessment with him. And he came up with lots of good pointers. He gave me some exercises. I went away, the exercises worked. And I sat there and I thought, this is perfect. Because he doesn't have a physiotherapy degree as well. So I am getting the pure course. The nuts and bolts of the course of this system is all he knows, and that's what I'm getting, and it made a difference. And that is what sold the whole thing to me. And I use it all the time. I moved my personal training out of, I'm 50 now, so I moved my personal training out of running around the park with people and hurting myself into a more office, as it were, based business where I assess people. I love it because it gets to the root cause of the problem. You immediately see, I don't know, in fact, I ran a little presentation to the owner of the gym, one of the gyms I work at, and he turned around to me and he said, wow, so this is like learning to exercise properly. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, but I'm not sure you should put that as my strap line, because I don't think the other trainers would like that very much. So it's because it goes down to exactly what your body's capable of doing from a joint perspective, a muscular perspective, and a neurology perspective. And you can then work through what those issues are. You can then stabilize the body, and then you strengthen it, and then you get great results. Great results. Brilliant. So it's
yourself as a personal trainer. Do you class yourself as a personal trainer, a biomechanics coach, a health coach? Right, okay.
Biomechanics coach. Hang on, let me just turn this off. Sorry. I am always trying to be the difference, or fill the gap, or work out what the next step is in the industry that I'm in. Yeah. And I fill the gap between we have physiotherapists and masseuses at the gym, and I fill the gap between them and the exercise. I can do all the exercise. I kind of don't particularly need to or want to. I would rather work as a whole with the other trainers. So my idea of how a gym would work perfectly is people come in, see a biomechanics coach, they go through an assessment, they understand what's wrong. You're the conduit then to send them off for, well, you need a bit of a massage here, you need a bit of physio on that, you need a bit of Pilates, would do great there. Try the reformer, try the gravity machine, do a bit of strength work here. There's a great running coach over there, so that you can send people out all over. And then you've got a system that people can check through, and then they get amazing results.
Yeah. So have you been able, because we're really hands-on in what we do, so have you converted online? You're talking about being online. Were you already online? Has lockdown changed things for you in your business? Are you doing a bit of both? Where are you at with it in terms of lockdown?
Yeah, it's changed it massively, because I wasn't really online. I mean, I have an online presence. My website was designed as a online brochure. So somebody might come to me and ask what I do. I then tell them a bit. I say, here's my website, go and check it out. It's got all the stuff about rehabilitation, about spine injuries, about knee injuries. It's got sports performance. You know, I've come from a top level of sailing. So I do a bit of mentoring, and I've done quite a lot of NLP sports psychology as well. So there's a big picture, and I try to do the holistic approach with, you know, looking at all angles, mind-body connection. So my online presence the website has been a brochure. I have, and I set Facebook pages up for specific things, like I have a general, so I have a trade under the name of Biospheric Performance, which biospheric meaning all around biosphere. And looking at performance. So I set up a Facebook page for that, but then I know that, you know, in order to reach people properly, you need to specialize. So I do a lot of work with horse riders. So I also set up an equestrian page, and then I do a lot of work with rehab people. I have some MS clients and what have you. So I set a page up there. And the idea behind those pages was to, instead of constantly emailing clients with articles or, you know, new tips, I was like, right, I'll put this up on these pages, you follow the page and you can see it, so I'm reaching all of you. So then I started thinking, well, actually this is a way of reaching more people from a client base. So I started tagging specific associations in to reach more people that way. And then Instagram came along and set that up. I have a Twitter account. I don't really do it. It kind of just melts in. So that was all my online presence was.
Right.
And when the lockdown went in, a lot of my clients were older, so they did all disappear. Plus, I'd had an accident at the end of last year with my horse, so I was quite out of the loop in the gym from a referral base, because there's a couple of other instructors who'd started taking the sort of rehabby people in. So I was a bit out of the loop. So I was trying to build my client base there up. So when the lockdown happened, I was kind of like, oh my goodness, everyone has disappeared. And I don't have a class network to immediately fall into running classes online, which a lot of the Pilates instructors were doing, which is why the I Move Freely would be a good thing to do, because that is a class situation that then you can move into to doing one-to-one stuff. So obviously so I set into that, and then I fell back into what I know from the past. So I fell back into, I was like, right, I'll create a timetable. And are we still there?
Yeah. Yes.
So I thought I'll create a timetable of things that I want to do and I need to do. So rehabby stuff in the morning, stretching, core stuff, and then a bit of I wanted to get on my exercise bike, on my bicycle, and do some interval training and use my rowing machine. So I thought I'll create a timetable of things that I'm going to do, and I will put it out there to the ether and see what happens. So I emailed all my clients this timetable, and I decided, you know, there's different ways it approaches. So with this group, I didn't have a lot of people immediately were servicing money they'd already taken. So they were providing the rest of the blocks of sessions, but doing it online. I didn't have this going on. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just reach people, and I'm going to do it on a donation basis, and we'll see what happens. So that timetable has floated along, but I've gone back to doing Pilates stuff in the morning and not doing the biomechanics now, as in assessing and that. I continued with about 6 of my clients from before who were happy to carry on online. That I have found it amazing doing it online, because it's 2-dimensional. All of a sudden, I can sit there and stare at this person's leg and watch whether it's wobbling sideways, how it's working, is the hip hinging, is the foot staying straight. I can sit and absolutely look at that. Whereas when I'm in a session with someone, if you spend that much time looking at a part of their body, they actually get a bit self-conscious, and it doesn't, and then they're not moving naturally. So I'm actually loving doing the biomechanics sessions, or even just personal training sessions online, because I think you can critique really, really well, and one-on-one I sit and watch. Anyway, so I had last week, I had a day where I did the core stuff in the morning, bearing in mind I cracked a vertebra last year and broke my collarbone. I did a core session in the morning, then I did a spin session on the bike, then I trained somebody and demonstrated a lot, and then I ended up doing a squats and lunges session with a load of running friends. And I thought, I actually can't sustain this. This is not the direction my business can go in. I need to go to work out how to do the biomechanics online, as in assessing. So I'd emailed you and thought, well, there must be a way of doing this. And then yesterday I had 2 new clients who I needed to do an online assessment with without touching them. So I sat here and got my sheet out of all of our tests, and I thought, right, okay, how can I do all these without touching them? And I had a little bit of a look at some of the people that I follow, John Gibbs and various others, and came up with some other ways of getting around stuff, and it went really well. So I can see myself in the future. I'm definitely going to invest in the online or keep this going as part of a string to my bow. It's quite hard. I guess what in the back of my head is, how big do you make your website? How much help do you have with video clips? How much do you put on? In a perfect world, you'd have your website, you'd be giving free information out on the live things, showing tips, and you'd be, doing your one-on-one. But it's really time consuming. And it took me, I was laughing at that chat, the webinar we had the other day, because I spent the first 2 weeks fighting using Zoom because I didn't want to pay for it. And the 40 minutes wasn't long enough because it just cut off when you were just about to get into something. You had like 5 minutes more. And I was looking at I looked at 2 other systems, and I came to exactly the same conclusion that you did, that they were just a bit agricultural or a bit rustic, or just Zoom is just slick. And so I bought the subscription, although I don't think you need to have paid for it now, but anyway. But there's a lot of help out there. It's just I've had to, like everybody, switch my head really quickly into, how do I market this? How do I reach more people? How do I do what I need to do online so that people get the results that they got on a one-to-one basis in the gym?
So do you think then, because for you that means like a long-term change by the sound of it, how do you see the industry, let's say 10 years from now? Do you think this is going to have a long-term influence, and what do you think it looks like in 10 years time, 10, 20 years time?
I think I'll get to your point. I think immediately, like for the next year, our industry will have to change, that we will not be able to have as many people in a gym. There's a lot of huffing and puffing. There's a lot of conversation about how far you exhale. It is a very contagious situation. And I think that that in the short term, my particular line of business where I want to be very face to face, and because it's personal as well. A lot of people's issues are not just they're not only physical. There's a lot of emotional baggage from it, and you need to be able to be in a more intimate situation to have that conversation, which you can do when you're in your living room on the computer. Long term, I think we'll get a vaccination and it'll be like smallpox. I don't know if it'll go completely back to normal, but I don't think
the industry itself, I'm talking about the health and fitness world, is personal training forever changed, do you think? So specifically for our industry.
For our industry, I think that it will come back to a form of what it was before, but I personally will have gone sideways, because I think I will do 50% of my work online and 50% face to face, but I think one will be more stringent in what will be more, our generation, having lived through this, will be more respectful of cleanliness and personal space. I think the kids coming through maybe will be, that's a different generation. I mean, when this whole thing first hit, I had a vision of Mad Max, of anarchy, of the world was never going to be the same again. you know, we weren't going to be having a fitness industry, it was all gone. But I think that in 5 years we will be back to, you know, there will be gyms. I think they'll be a bit exclusive. I think what this has done for us, which is a bonus, is it's fast tracked us to having to use social media and video conferencing, which has given us another string to our bow. It gives us a massive reach. I mean, like I heard you say on one of your chats, you know, I mean, I've got a friend from France comes in. I've got friends from Hertfordshire. I've got people from, you know, Australia are saying, why don't they come and join in? You know, it's just the time difference. I mean, the globe is your client, your market now. So I don't have to worry about driving up to Winchester, you know, every morning at 5:30 to be in that place to see those people. I mean, I can almost go and ride my horse. And if I've got a horse riding client, I can almost sit in the field with a mat and do a Pilates session there on the telephone. So I think it's changed, it's relieved the pressure off me as a trainer to have to be in a location. I think that one of the big things that one fights as a personal trainer is it's all very well for people to come to the gym and do stuff with you, but you need them to be regular in between times. So my business model is not to see somebody 3 times a week.
Yeah.
It's to make it sustainable. See them once a week for 3 or 4 weeks, and then see them once every 2 weeks, and then space it out. But I need them to buy into it and do stuff. And I think that if this has allowed us to be creative and have clients use it. You know, I have a client she uses bricks and a bag of sand for her weight. She's weighed it. That's 8 kilos. This is 10. You know, and so we don't have to spend the money, and the consumerist side of it and the expensive side of it, I don't think has to be there for everyone. There will always be a sect of people that is their sport, and they love the gym and they want to go. They like the environment, they like the buzz of it. So there will always be a group of people, I think, that will go to a gym. But I think we will lose a few. I think we're going to lose a lot of businesses. I think we will lose a few gyms because it's a very high. It's a high. What's the word? It's an expensive business to have, because there's a lot of expensive equipment that's being rented, and you need numbers through the door to make it work.
And yet, if you can use bricks and sand, is that not more functional based anyway?
Totally. And it's also more environmentally friendly. You're not making this stuff out of plastic. You know, we're back to being more earthy and more conscious of the environment and recycling and all of that. And you know, what the biggest excuse that people say why they didn't do any exercise between sessions is, oh, I couldn't get to the gym, or I couldn't, you know, it was raining, or, you know, I mean, I've had people standing outside doing shoulder press with the garden chair over their head. You know, there's no need for it. And I think it's quite empowering.
I totally agree. I think you're right. I think there's going to be a change long term, where you get some that will go back to the normal. That's what they're comfortable with, and different sort of characters and demographics and goals. But I think it's, like you say, opened up our reach. I think it gives us the ability to help more people, and those that are intimidated by gyms. I think it's only 9% of the population are gym members anyway. So yeah, to be able to now reach people in their own homes, save them time. They can do it in the front room, or, you know, and that may or may not be right for some people, but there's those, I do believe, I think this is a really good thing, as you say. And for us, commercially, it's way more interesting in terms of time, rent, you know, equipment, as you say. So I think I agree with you completely, Emma. So as a coach, as a biomechanics coach, have you found that, let's say, working with other professionals, do you think there's a misconception about intrinsic biomechanics, posture assessment, how we are perceived, and how have you dealt with that? How do you differentiate us to another professional saying, well, what do you do as a biomechanics coach? Biomechanics isn't that like video analysis and gait or whatever?
Well, a lot of people don't even know. You know, I've had a lot of people say, you know, in environments I'm working in, when I'll be discussing, you know, could we advertise the biomechanics coaching a bit more? Or some of the feedback I've had is, well, nobody knows what biomechanics is. And I'm kind of like, well, that's interesting because it's in a lot of magazines, it's in a lot of sports, know what biomechanics is. I've done quite a few little educational snippets, trying to explain, firstly, you know, biomechanics as a functional movement, looking at the way that the body moves correctly, treating it as a piece of engineering, alignment, and you know, most people, once you've got the time with them, are completely interested because it means they're exercising correctly. When it comes to, I haven't had quite so much of the extrinsic, intrinsic conversation, but I'm often surprised when I see physios doing, you know, they'll do their tests of the area and then they'll watch someone run and then they'll be discussing something. They've got obviously a very good awareness of the body, which is, you know, more their training than if you've gone through a personal training road and then you've gone into biomechanics. So I can understand that, having seen a lot of people, they can make a judgment. However, so the video analysis thing, which is what we're now doing, is slightly against my grain, because what I find interesting is lying somebody on the massage bed, moving their feet around and saying, wow, yeah, okay, you are really mobile, no wonder you're you know, in your feet, no wonder you're struggling to stabilize, or, you know, crikey, you're really stiff in your sacroiliac joint here, or your piriformis, or whatever, which you cannot get from watching. You can do the tests and you can kind of go, okay, does it feel? But when you're saying to someone, okay, you know, if you're doing a straight leg raise and you're saying, okay, tell me when you feel any tension, tightness, or tingling, and then they do it, but they're zoned out in a place of rapport with you, and they're also focusing just on that leg. When you lie them on the ground and you've got to tell them to put a rope around their leg and pull their foot up, you don't know if the leg's bent a bit, you don't know if it's totally straight, you don't know if they're actually tweaking, they're pulling with their arm, their head's all up off the mat. And you know, one of our big things is all about fascia as well. It's all about, if you lift your head up while I'm doing a straight leg raise, it will give a different result because you're tweaking the fascia. So if they're pulling with their arms, it is the best we can do, but it's not true to our heart of what the biomechanics teaching and learnings and what I liked about it. So yeah, I think as a biomechanics coach, it's been the biggest thing. I mean, one of the things I think I had to do on one of the courses was a 5-minute buzz on how you were going to sell yourself. And we were back then teaching people what biomechanics was, because the average person didn't know. The average person knows a lot more now because it's in the golfing magazines, it's in the rider biomechanics for horses, it's splattered everywhere. They talk about horse biomechanics, they talk about it is much more out there, and you know, if you follow Olympic athletes, they talk about biomechanics coaching too. So but they're much more on the extrinsic, and but I kind of like that because it's a little bit of okay, well, that's great, you can see the difference between Tiger Woods's you know, golf swing and her golf swing, but what's going on with her shoulder? Do we really know? It's not very much to tell her she needs to lift club head up more or do whatever, you know. So that for me is the actual selling point. So it's how we get our hands back onto people without with the social distancing, which is the same issue that physios have, same issue hairdressers have. I mean, do we put a visor on? My brother-in-law's a GP and he wears, you know, they've got a COVID clinic and he's got the visor and the mask underneath. And do we do that for the first session and then we do the rest? You know, we don't need to touch them after that. I mean, I am a good toucher because I like to prod muscles and say, right, get that. But we could do that using electrostimulating, you know, stuff or whatever, or we can do it without. But the first assessment, it would be a shame to not be able to touch somebody to do that again.
And it's the oxytocin release, isn't it, from human contact that enables you to connect more with a client. So do you have a book recommendations. So top book, anything, could be industry related or not. For anybody listening, what would be your kind of like number one? I know you're probably a bit of a nerd like me, aren't you?
No, I'm terrible at
Oh.
reading. Books everywhere, and I'm awful at reading them. It's a bit like signing up to courses. I sign up to them and then I don't always get to follow through them. I read so many different things because, you know, from dog training to how a horse, dresser. Been given a book by, I can't remember her first name. She's Jodie Kidd's daughter, though, Jane Kidd, maybe, on dressage riding, on the biomechanics of, I find the horse, how a horse does dressage is what we're doing with humans. It is fascinating, but it's the human is eliciting positions on that horse to make that horse do what we want it to do and do it correctly. And the horse is the one that's getting marked. But if we're not correct, how can it be correct? Yeah. So there are methods with horse riding to make a horse do something with a stick and spurs, but that to me is not pure, because the rider is probably crooked, which is why the horse isn't doing something straight. Yeah, golly, I just read a book called Peak by Dr. Mark Bard. So that is hefty on nutrition. I'm fascinated with nutrition, with acidity and alkalinity and IBS and all of these illnesses that we've got in the world. That would they be here? I'm always thinking, would they be here if we just grew our own vegetables and put a bit of horse manure on and drank water? Would we have as much toxic diseases? You know, so yeah, I'm not very good at giving you books, but that is a good one. And I'm also fascinated in psychology, in how the mind works, and you know, how and a lot of it goes back to the old masters, you know, back in the day, how people thought, you know, Robert Bandler and some of the stuff he's done.
Brilliant. So if we have people watching this who want to use your services, whether it's now, online, during lockdown, or even beyond this, where can they find you? Social media? What's your website? How do people locate you? Where are you in the world?
So I'm down on the south coast of the UK, down in Hamble, near Southampton. I practice in Winchester because it's more central. It's got a bigger reach. And there's a really nice gym there that I use called New Energy Fitness. My personal Facebook page obviously is under my name, but I don't put so much on that. And this is a question I have for myself for the future. Should I have more on there? Am I the brand? I have traded under a name of Biospheric Performance. So I have a Facebook page of Biospheric Performance. I have one also for horse riders, which is Biospheric Performance Equestrian Posture. And I also have one which is Biospheric Performance Rehab, which is more to do with rehabilitation, obviously. I am on Twitter under my name, and I have 2 Twitter accounts because I kind of got sucked into that. Don't ask me why. I need to get rid of one because it's ridiculous. And I'm on but I'm not really very active on Twitter, but I am on Instagram. So I'm Emma Biomechanics on Instagram.
Brilliant.
And my website is biospheric-performance.com. And that's got a lot of information on it. And yeah, I'm interested in if I was to say what my strapline was, it's helping people feel better about themselves from every angle. So mentally achieving things, physically because they're not hurting, and physically because they can do it. And looking at posture and performance to move forwards, really.
Amazing. I was going to say you're one of our oldest biomechanics coaches, but that's not very nice, is it? I meant that you trained because 2011 was Intelligent Training Systems. We came together in 2006. The diploma started around 2009-10. So you were in the first groups. So
yeah,
longest serving.
Yeah, I think I was in your second or third. I think I was in your second. So I was in the one after Joe, Siddy, and those guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, I know. And I have to say, so what attracted me to that course was what I said before, but also the testing was on a sheet of paper. And you got the piece of paper and you went through the test, you wrote the answers on there and you drew it out on the links man, and you show it to the client and it's there. Many of the other courses were on, it was all on an iPad. And what I resented with that was that as if I decided to not pay for, and you had to pay for a subscription for the assessment stuff. And if I decided that I didn't want to pay that anymore, I lost all my students' notes.
Yeah.
It was all on their system. So whilst I'm helping them, you know, improve their system, which one should never begrudge in this industry, it's always good to help them, to help the industry move forwards. I want to be able to have my clients' notes so I can hand them to them and I can recheck, and it's just easy. And I think that was a really important for me, that the assessing and all of that was, you know, I had it in my head and in my files.
Brilliant. Emma, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I know if you're like me, you've got super busy again, getting everything online. So hopefully we can meet when we get out of this lockdown soon. But thanks ever so much for your time. I appreciate it. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon.
Will do. And thanks, Rachel.
Take
Bye.
care.